Have you ever stood in a room full of people who were smiling at your destruction? For Audrey, that nightmare was a Tuesday night. The crystal glass didn't just break, it was thrown. And the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the sound of 50 wealthy socialites waiting for the kill. Her mother-in-law held the microphone like a weapon, laughing as she announced to the entire gala that Audrey was nothing more than a temporary mistake. They thought Audrey was alone. They thought she was powerless. But they forgot one thing. They had never met her family. And when the double doors swung open, the man standing there didn't just bring money, he brought a reckoning that would burn their legacy to the ground. The invitation said 7 p.m., but Audrey knew that in the Hawthorne family, showing up on time was considered late. If you weren't 15 minutes early, you were already a disappointment. Audrey adjusted the hem of her dress in the rearview mirror of her 10-year-old Honda Civic. It was a navy blue silk dress she had bought on sale at Macy's 3 years ago. It was elegant, understated, and clean. But she knew exactly what her mother-in-law, Patricia Hawthorne, would say the moment she saw it. "Oh, Audrey, how quaint. It's so brave of you to wear vintage." Patricia wouldn't mean vintage in the chic, Parisian way. She would mean it in the you-can't-afford-new-clothes way. Audrey took a deep breath, staring at her reflection. "Just get through tonight," she whispered to herself. "It's the 5th anniversary. Just smile, eat the dry chicken, and go home." Her husband, Liam, was already inside. He had come straight from his office at Hawthorne Holdings. He hadn't called her all day. Not a happy anniversary, not a see you tonight. Just radio silence. That wasn't unusual lately. For the past 6 months, Liam had been distant, his eyes always glued to his phone, his temper short. He blamed the stress of the merger, but Audrey felt the cold draft of something else, something rotting in the foundation of their marriage. She stepped out of the car, handing the keys to the valet at the Grand Oak Country Club. The valet, a young man named Kevin who she'd chatted with before, gave her a sympathetic smile. "Rough crowd tonight, Mrs. Hawthorne," Kevin murmured as he took the key. "I saw Mrs. Patricia arrive earlier. She's in a mood." "Thanks for the warning, Kevin," Audrey said, forcing a smile. As she walked up the marble steps, the heavy oak doors seemed to loom over her. This wasn't just a party, it was a performance. The Hawthorne family didn't do intimacy, they did spectacles. And tonight, unbeknownst to Audrey, she wasn't just a guest. She was the main event. Inside, the ballroom was suffocatingly opulent. Chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over men in tuxedos and women dripping in diamonds. The air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. Audrey scanned the room for Liam. She found him near the bar, laughing. He looked handsome in his bespoke charcoal suit, a glass of scotch in one hand. But his smile faded the second his eyes locked with hers. It wasn't a look of love. It was a look of annoyance. "You're late," Liam said, as she approached, not bothering to lower his voice. "I'm 10 minutes early, Liam," Audrey replied quietly, reaching for his arm. He pulled away slightly, pretending to adjust his cufflink. "Mother has been asking for you. She says you're holding up the photos," he muttered, knocking back the rest of his drink. "And? Is that the same dress you wore to Richard's wedding?" Audrey felt her stomach tighten. "It's the only formal dress I have that fits right now, Liam. You know we've been tight on money since you refused to ask your parents for help," Liam cut in, his voice sharp. "Don't start with the budget talk here, Audrey. Not tonight." Audrey bit her tongue. The irony was bitter. Liam thought her parents were struggling retirees living in a small town in Oregon. He thought she came from nothing. When they met, she had told him she wanted a simple life, that she valued hard work over inheritance. She never told him the full truth because she wanted to be loved for her, not for the name she was born with. She wanted to avoid exactly the kind of people who filled this room. "There she is!" The voice cut through the noise like a serrated knife. Patricia Hawthorne approached them, flanked by her two daughters, Caroline and Stephanie. They moved in a pack, like hyenas in couture. Patricia was wearing a silver gown that likely cost more than Audrey's car. Her face was pulled tight with Botox, but her eyes were sharp, scanning Audrey from head to toe with undisguised disdain. "Happy anniversary, dear," Patricia said, leaning in to air-kiss Audrey's cheek, careful not to actually touch her skin. "I see we're recycling wardrobes. How sustainable of you." Caroline snickered behind her hand. "Maybe she's trying to start a trend, Mom." "Poverty chic." Audrey straightened her spine. "It's good to see you too, Patricia. You look lovely." "I always do," Patricia snapped. "Now come along. We need a family photo. And try to stand in the back, Audrey. The lighting is better for your complexion back there." They marched her toward the photographer, like a prisoner being led to the gallows. As they posed, Audrey felt Liam's hand on her back. For a second, she thought he was comforting her. Then she realized he was pushing her aside to make room for someone else. A woman walked into the frame. She was tall, blonde, and striking, wearing a blood-red dress that was cut dangerously low. It was Jessica Sterling, the daughter of a real estate tycoon, and Liam's ex-girlfriend from college. "Am I late?" Jessica purred, sliding next to Liam. She placed a possessive hand on his chest. "Just in time, Jessica," Patricia beamed, her demeanor changing instantly from ice to warmth. "Get in here, darling. You're practically family anyway." Audrey froze. "Patricia, this is our anniversary photo." "Why is Jessica—" "Oh, stop being so sensitive, Audrey," Liam hissed in her ear. "Jessica is a major investor in the new project. It's just business. Don't make a scene." The photographer snapped the picture. In the flash, Audrey saw the truth. She was standing on the edge of the group, half-shadowed. In the center, bathed in light, Liam and Jessica stood shoulder to shoulder, smiling like the perfect couple. Audrey didn't know it yet, but the photo wasn't the insult. The photo was just the warm-up. Dinner was served in the main banquet hall. The seating chart was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive engineering. The head table was set for the immediate family. Naturally, Audrey assumed she would be seated next to her husband. She was wrong. When she arrived at the table, she saw the place cards. Liam was seated at the center, to the right of his mother. On his other side sat Jessica Sterling. Audrey scanned the table, confused. "Liam, where am I sitting?" Liam didn't look up from his salad. He waved his fork vaguely toward the far end of the table, near the kitchen doors. "There wasn't enough room at the center, Audrey. Mom wanted to discuss the merger with Jessica, and since you don't know anything about business, she thought you'd be more comfortable down there." "Down there" was next to Great-Aunt Muriel, who was deaf, and a cousin named Toby, who was currently chewing with his mouth open. Audrey felt the blood rush to her face. She looked at Patricia, who was watching her with a satisfied smirk. This was a test. If Audrey walked out, she was the crazy, emotional wife. If she sat down, she was the doormat. She sat down. "I love him," she repeated in her head, though the voice was getting quieter. "I made a vow, for better or for worse." The dinner dragged on. Every time Audrey looked up, she saw Jessica whispering in Liam's ear, making him laugh. She saw Patricia touching Jessica's arm affectionately. It was a display of intimacy that Audrey had been denied for years. Then came the speeches. Usually, at an anniversary party, the husband gives a toast to his wife. Liam stood up, tapping his spoon against his glass. The room went silent. "Thank you all for coming," Liam began, his voice charming and smooth. 5 years. It feels like a lifetime." A few people chuckled. Audrey smiled weakly, waiting for the part where he mentioned her loyalty, her support, the fact that she had nursed him through his surgery last year, or how she managed their home while he worked 80-hour weeks. "These past few years have been educational," Liam continued. "I've learned a lot about what I want and what I don't want." He paused, looking down at Jessica, who smiled back. "I want to thank my mother, Patricia, for her endless guidance. She always knows what's best for me, even when I'm too stubborn to see it. And I want to thank Jessica for coming back into my life at exactly the right moment. Your support on the new acquisition has been invaluable." He raised his glass. "To the future, and to correcting past mistakes." The room applauded politely, but a ripple of confusion went through the guests. He hadn't mentioned Audrey's name, not once. Audrey sat frozen, her hand gripping the napkin in her lap so hard her knuckles turned white. Correcting past mistakes? Patricia stood up next. She didn't need to tap her glass. She just walked to the microphone stand at the front of the room. She commanded attention like a general. "Thank you, Liam," Patricia said, her voice amplified through the speakers. "You know, as a mother, you always want your children to have the best. The best education, the best career, and certainly the best partner." She turned her gaze directly toward Audrey at the end of the table. "When Liam married Audrey 5 years ago, I had my doubts," Patricia said, her tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "We all did. It's difficult when two people come from such different worlds. We hoped that Audrey would rise to the occasion. We hoped she would learn our ways, our etiquette, our standards." The room was deathly silent now. Guests were exchanging uncomfortable glances. This wasn't a toast. It was a dissection. "But," Patricia sighed dramatically, "you can't teach a crab to fly, can you? Some people are just meant to be ordinary. And my son is extraordinary." Patricia signaled to a waiter, who handed her a velvet box. "Liam has been too kind to say this, so I will do it for him," Patricia announced. "Tonight isn't really a celebration of 5 years of marriage. It's a celebration of a new beginning. Liam has finalized the papers today." Audrey's heart stopped. "What papers?" she whispered, though no one heard her. "Divorce papers," Patricia said into the mic, answering the unspoken question in the room. The crowd gasped. "And," Patricia continued, beaming, "I am thrilled to announce that once the unpleasantness is finalized, Liam and Jessica will be officially merging their lives and their trust funds." Patricia opened the velvet box. Inside was a diamond ring the size of a quail egg, a ring that belonged to the Hawthorne family vault. "Welcome to the family, Jessica," Patricia said, properly this time. Jessica stood up, feigning surprise, and hugged Liam. The room erupted into confused, hesitant applause, led aggressively by Caroline and Stephanie. Audrey sat there, her world dissolving. The humiliation was total. They had invited her here, to her own anniversary, to publicly discard her. They wanted to break her in front of everyone, so she wouldn't dare fight for a settlement. Audrey stood up. Her legs were shaking, but she forced them to hold her weight. "Liam," she said. Her voice was small, but in the silence between claps, it carried. Liam looked at her. For a second, she saw shame in his eyes. But then he looked at his mother. Then at Jessica, and the shame hardened into arrogance. "It's over, Audrey," Liam said, loud enough for the table to hear. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You don't fit in here. You never did. You're a small-town girl. Go back to your parents in Oregon. I'll cut you a check for $10,000. That should be enough to start over in whatever trailer park they're living in. $10,000 for 5 years of her life. Audrey looked at Patricia. Patricia was smiling, waiting for the tears, waiting for the begging. "Is that it?" Audrey asked, her voice trembling, not with sadness, but with a rising, molten heat she hadn't felt in years. "You think I'm here for your money? What else do you have?" Patricia laughed. "Look at you. You're wearing a rag. You drive a rust bucket. You have no connections, no power, and no name. You are a nobody, Audrey. And tonight, we're taking out the trash." That was the moment the glass broke. A waiter dropped a tray, but nobody looked. They were all looking at Audrey. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She reached into her purse, the cheap, worn leather purse they had all mocked, and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number she hadn't called in 5 years. The room watched, fascinated. Who could she possibly be calling? Her mum? A taxi? Audrey held the phone to her ear. It rang once. "It's me," Audrey said into the phone. Her voice changed. The timid housewife was gone. The tone was cold, authoritative, and sharp as a diamond cutter. "I'm done hiding. Bring the car, and bring the file on Hawthorne Holdings." She hung up and looked at Liam. "You wanted a divorce, Liam? You've got one. But you're going to wish you had just stayed silent." Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom slammed open with a sound like a thunderclap. 2 men in dark suits walked in. They were massive, military-grade security. They flanked the door, standing at attention. And then he walked in. He was tall, wearing a tuxedo that made Liam's suit look like a costume rental. He had cold grey eyes and a jawline that looked carved from granite. He walked with the kind of confidence that doesn't just own the room, it owns the building. The crowd parted instantly. A murmur rippled through the room. "Is that—" someone whispered. "No, it can't be." "Oh my God, it is." Patricia squinted, the microphone lowering in her hand. "Who is this intruder? Security! Get him out!" The man ignored her. He walked straight to Audrey. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at Liam. He stopped in front of Audrey, his expression softening just a fraction. "I told you they weren't good enough for you, sis," the man said. His voice was deep, carrying effortlessly through the silent room. Audrey looked up at him. "I know, Sebastian. I know." Patricia dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a screech of feedback that made everyone wince. "Sebastian," Patricia stammered, her face draining of color. "Sebastian Sterling. No, wait. Sebastian Vanderbilt." The man turned slowly to face Patricia. The look he gave her was terrifying. "My name is Sebastian Blackwood," he said, "and you just humiliated my little sister." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. The Blackwood family. The family that owned half of the tech industry, the shipping lines, and, most importantly, the bank that held the mortgage on the Hawthorne estate. Audrey wasn't a nobody. She was Audrey Blackwood, and the war had just begun. The silence in the ballroom was heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a natural disaster. The name Blackwood didn't just ring a bell. It set off sirens in the minds of every wealthy socialite in the room. The Blackwood family was American royalty. But unlike the Hawthornes, who flashed their money with gaudy parties and gossip columns, the Blackwoods were the unseen hand. They owned the banks the Hawthornes borrowed from. They owned the land the Hawthornes built on. They were the currents beneath the water, invisible and capable of drowning anyone who underestimated them. Patricia Hawthorne blinked rapidly, her silver dress shimmering as she took an unsteady step back. Her brain was trying to reconcile the image of Audrey, the quiet girl who drove a Honda and wore sail rack clothes, with the terrifying legacy of the Blackwood Empire. That's impossible, Patricia stammered, her voice losing its polished edge. Audrey's last name is Smith. She told us her father was a carpenter. Audrey stepped forward. She didn't look at Patricia. She looked at her fingernails, inspecting them as if she were bored. Smith is my mother's maiden name. Patricia, Audrey said, her voice cool and detached. And yes, my father is a carpenter. He enjoys woodworking in his spare time. He finds it relaxing after spending his days managing a $90 billion investment portfolio. Audrey finally looked up, her eyes locking onto Liam. He was pale, the glass of scotch trembling in his hand. I wanted to be sure, Audrey said softly to him. I grew up wondering if people liked me or my trust fund. So when I met you, I stripped it all away. I wanted to see if you could love a woman who had nothing to offer but her heart. She laughed, a dry, humorless sound, and for 5 years you made me feel like that nothing was a burden. You made me apologize for existing, Liam. You made me beg for scraps of affection. Liam took a step toward her, his survival instinct kicking in. Audrey, babe, why didn't you tell me? If I had known, if you had known, you would have treated me like a queen, Audrey finished for him. Not because you loved me, but because you love money. You're a parasite, Liam, and I just spent 5 years feeding you. Sebastian Blackwood moved then. He didn't rush, he simply glided between Audrey and Liam like a shark cutting through water. He was a head taller than Liam and broader in the shoulders. He looked down at Liam with the kind of disinterest a boot has for an ant. "Step back," Sebastian said. It wasn't a shout. It was a command spoken at conversational volume, yet Liam scrambled backward so fast he nearly tripped over his own chair. Jessica Sterling, standing by the head table, finally found her voice. She was pale, her eyes darting between Sebastian and the exit. She knew the business world better than Liam did. She knew that crossing a Blackwood was professional suicide. "This is ridiculous," Jessica said, trying to sound brave but failing. "So what if she has a rich brother? That doesn't change the fact that Liam loves me. We're business partners. We have a connection you wouldn't understand." Sebastian turned his gaze to Jessica. He tilted his head slightly. "Ah, Ms. Sterling," Sebastian said. "Jessica, isn't it? Your father is Richard Sterling, correct?" "Yes," Jessica said, lifting her chin defiantly. "He owns Sterling Real Estate." "He manages Sterling Real Estate," Sebastian corrected her. "You might want to check the parent company on your father's paychecks. Sterling Real Estate was acquired by Blackwood Global Ventures 4 years ago. Your father works for me." The color drained from Jessica's face so completely she looked like a wax figure. What? "Your father is a mid-level regional manager in my portfolio," Sebastian said, checking his watch. "And considering the disrespect his daughter just showed my sister, I'm wondering if his contract is up for renewal." Jessica gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "No, please, you can't." "I can," Sebastian said. "And I usually do." Patricia, sensing the complete collapse of her meticulously planned evening, tried one last desperate maneuver. She forced a laugh, a shrill, manic sound that echoed in the quiet hall. "Well," Patricia clapped her hands together, "this is certainly a surprise. But we're family, aren't we? Audrey, darling, you must understand. My little speech earlier was just tough love. We wanted to push you to be your best self. And look at you now. You're a Blackwood. This changes everything." Patricia reached out, attempting to grab Audrey's hands. "We can forget the divorce nonsense. Liam was just stressed. We can renew your vows. Imagine the wedding we could throw now." Audrey didn't pull away. She just let Patricia touch her hands, her skin cold. "You're right, Patricia," Audrey said. "This does change everything." She pulled her hands back slowly. "But you misunderstood," Audrey continued. "I didn't call Sebastian here to reconcile. I called him here because I own something you need." "What could you possibly own?" Caroline, Liam's sister, scoffed from the side, though she looked terrified. "You've been living off Liam's salary for years." Audrey held out her hand to Sebastian. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a thick, navy blue folder. He placed it in her palm. Audrey threw the folder onto the dinner table. It slid across the tablecloth, knocking over a vase of white roses, and came to a stop in front of Liam. "Read it," Audrey commanded. Liam hesitated, then opened the folder. His eyes scanned the first page. His breathing hitched. He flipped the page frantically, then another. When he looked up, he looked like a man who had just seen his own grave. "No," Liam whispered. This is confidential." "What is it?" Patricia demanded, snatching the folder from his hands. She read the document, her mouth falling open. "Audrey," Patricia whispered. "What have you done?" "What have I done?" Audrey repeated the question, her voice rising so the entire room could hear. "I did what a good wife does. I tried to save you." She walked toward the center of the room, addressing the crowd of stunned onlookers. "You all see the Hawthorne family as pillars of this community," Audrey announced. "You see the galas, the cars, the diamonds. But what you don't see is the balance sheet." She turned back to Patricia. "Hawthorne Holdings hasn't made a profit in 3 years. You've been bleeding money. The bad investments in crypto, the failed expansion in Asia, Liam's gambling debts." A murmur ripped through the crowd. "Gambling debts? Shut up!" Liam shouted, lunging forward. "Shut up, Audrey!" One of Sebastian's security guards stepped forward, blocking Liam's path with a chest like a concrete wall. Liam bounced off him, stumbling back. 6 months ago," Audrey continued, unbothered. "Liam told me the company was in trouble. He didn't tell me how bad it was, but I knew. He was desperate. That's why he reconnected with Jessica. He wasn't looking for love, Jessica. He was looking for a bailout. He thought your father's money could plug the hole in the ship." Audrey looked at Jessica, whose face was a mask of horror. "He used you," Audrey said simply. "Just like he used me." "That's a lie," Liam screamed. "I love her." "You love her father's liquidity," Audrey corrected. "But here's the funny part. The debt was too big for Sterling Real Estate to handle. The bank was going to foreclose on this country club, the mansion, and the company headquarters next week." Patricia was shaking, clutching the table for support. "How do you know this?" "Because," Audrey said, a dangerous smile touching her lips, "I bought the debt." The room went dead silent. "What?" Patricia breathed. "The bank was selling off your distressed assets," Audrey explained. "I used my trust fund, the one you said didn't exist, to purchase the entirety of the Hawthorne debt portfolio. Every loan, every mortgage, every credit line." She pointed a finger at Patricia. "I am not just your daughter-in-law, Patricia. I am your creditor. I own your house. I own your company. I own the chair you are sitting on." Patricia collapsed into her chair. The fight had left her body. In the world of the elite, money was God. And Audrey had just revealed herself to be the high priestess. You wouldn't," Patricia whimpered. "We're family." "Family?" Audrey laughed. 10 minutes ago, I was trash to be taken out. 10 minutes ago, I was a temporary mistake. You mocked me in front of 500 people. You destroyed my marriage for sport." Audrey walked over to the table and picked up the microphone Patricia had dropped earlier. "So, here is how this is going to work," Audrey said, her voice amplified, booming through the hall. "I am calling in the loans, immediately." "You can't do that!" Liam cried out. "That's bankruptcy. That's ruin." "It's business," Audrey said coldly, echoing Liam's words from earlier. "Don't take it personally, Liam." She turned to the crowd. "I'm sorry to ruin the party, everyone, but I'm afraid the hosts can no longer afford to pay the catering bill. I suggest you go home." Chaos erupted. People began grabbing their coats and bags, desperate to distance themselves from the radioactive fallout of the Hawthorne name. The waiters stopped serving. The music had long since died. In the center of the storm, Liam looked at Jessica. "Jessica, baby, please. You have to talk to your dad. We can fix this." Jessica looked at Liam with pure disgust. She looked at the ring on her finger, the Hawthorne ring, and realized it was worthless. If the family was bankrupt, the ring was probably cubic zirconia or uninsured. She pulled the ring off her finger and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and rolled under the table. "Don't touch me!" Jessica hissed. "You broke loser." She turned to Sebastian, putting on her most seductive, apologetic smile. "Mr. Blackwood, I had no idea. Really, I was manipulated by him. Save it," Sebastian said, not even looking at her. "My legal team will be in touch with your father tomorrow regarding his performance review. Leave." Jessica fled, her red dress trailing behind her like a bloody streak. Now, it was just the Hawthorns left in the wreckage. Patricia was sobbing quietly. Caroline and Stephanie were furiously texting, likely trying to secure their own assets before they were frozen. Liam stood alone, stripped of his pride, his mistress, and his future. He looked at Audrey. For the first time, he really saw her. He saw the strength he had ignored, the beauty he had undervalued. "Audrey," he choked out, "please, we can talk about this. I made a mistake, a horrible mistake. But 5 years, doesn't that mean anything?" Audrey looked at him with eyes that were dry and clear. "It meant everything to me, Liam," she said. "That's why this hurts. But pain is a great teacher." She turned to her brother. "I'm ready to go, Sebastian." "Wait!" Patricia shrieked, standing up. "Where will we go? You're taking our home." Audrey stopped at the door. She looked back over her shoulder. "I hear the rental market in Oregon is quite reasonable," she said. "Maybe you can find a nice trailer park." She walked out the double doors, her brother at her side, leaving the golden cage behind her. But the story wasn't over. As they stepped into the cool night air, Sebastian handed Audrey another phone. "It's not just the debt, Audrey," Sebastian said quietly as they walked toward his waiting limousine. "While you were inside, my investigators found something else. Something about the twins." Audrey stopped dead on the pavement. "What twins? What are you talking about?" Sebastian's face was grim. "Jessica wasn't just his mistress, Audrey. She has 2 children, 3 years old. Liam has been paying for a secret apartment in the city for 3 years. He has a second family." The world tilted on its axis. Audrey felt the breath leave her lungs. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just financial. It was total. "He has children," she whispered. "Yes," Sebastian said. "And there's more. The money he was stealing from the company? It wasn't just for gambling. He was funneling it into an offshore account under the children's names. He was planning to leave you destitute and run away with them." Audrey closed her eyes. The sadness vanished, replaced by a cold, white rage that was hotter than anything she had felt in the ballroom. She had taken his money. She had taken his pride. But now she realized that wasn't enough. She opened her eyes. They were hard as diamonds. "Get in the car, Sebastian," Audrey said. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To his office," she said. "He thinks he's lost everything? I haven't even started." The interior of the limousine was quiet, insulated from the chaos they had left behind at the country club. But inside Audrey's mind, a hurricane was raging. She stared at the tablet Sebastian had handed her. On the screen was a series of surveillance photos taken by a private investigator. Photo 1. Liam pushing a stroller in a park in a neighboring city. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, casual clothes Audrey had never seen him wear. Photo 2. Liam kissing Jessica on the forehead outside a brownstone apartment. Photo 3. A birthday party. Liam holding 2 toddlers, a boy and a girl, while they blew out candles on a cake shaped like a pirate ship. The date stamp on the photo was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Audrey whispered, her voice cracking. He told me he was in Chicago for a merger conference. He called me that night and said he was exhausted from negotiations. He was lying in bed with her. Sebastian sat across from her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes burning with protective fury. "He's been living a double life, Audrey. The apartment is under a shell company name. The lease is paid from an account in the Cayman Islands. He's been funneling company funds into that account for 4 years. He calls it Project Escape." Audrey swiped to the next image. It was a scan of a birth certificate. Father, Liam Hawthorne. Mother, Jessica Sterling. Date of birth, June 12, 2023. "They're 3 years old," Audrey said, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "He cheated on me 2 years into our marriage. When I was begging him to go to counseling because he seemed so distant, he was raising a secret family." She remembered June 2023. She remembered it vividly. Liam had missed their 2nd anniversary dinner. He claimed his car had broken down on the highway, and his phone had died. She had waited up until 3 a.m., worried sick. When he finally came home, he smelled like hospital antiseptic. He said he had waited at a mechanic's shop. He hadn't been at a mechanic. He had been at the hospital, watching his mistress give birth. "He played the long game," Sebastian said. He knew Hawthorne Holdings was sinking. He knew his mother would eventually pressure him to find a richer wife. But he didn't want to leave empty-handed. He wanted to secure a nest egg first. He was waiting until the account hit $10 million before filing for divorce. "How close was he?" Audrey asked. $9.8 million, Sebastian replied. "Tonight was the trigger. He thought by humiliating you, he could force a quick, cheap divorce, marry Jessica publicly, and disappear with the cash before the auditors realized the company was hollow." Audrey set the tablet down. Her hands were trembling, not from sadness, but from adrenaline. The man she had loved, the man she had washed socks for and cooked dinner for, was a sociopath. He hadn't just fallen out of love. He had systematically orchestrated her destruction while building a paradise for someone else. Jessica knew, Audrey realized aloud. At the party, she acted like she was just a business partner or a new flame. But she's been in on it the whole time. She knew she was the mistress. She knew about me. She knew everything, Sebastian confirmed. She was banking on it. She thought she was marrying a genius who was stealing a fortune for their future. Audrey looked out the window. The city lights blurred as rain began to streak the glass. "Where is he now?" she asked. "He left the party 5 minutes after we did," Sebastian said, checking his phone. "His GPS tracker shows him moving fast. He's not going to the apartment. He's going to the office." "He's going to try to transfer the money," Audrey said, her eyes narrowing. He needs to move that 9 million before the banks freeze the accounts in the morning. Exactly, Sebastian said. He thinks he still has time. Audrey pressed the intercom button. Driver, change of destination. Take us to Hawthorne Tower. Drive fast. She turned back to Sebastian. He thinks I'm just a scorned wife who got lucky with a rich brother. He doesn't know who I really am. Sebastian smirked. He's about to find out. You were the top forensic accounting student in your class at Wharton before you dropped out to marry him. Remember? I didn't drop out, Audrey corrected him, fixing her hair. I took a sabbatical, and tonight, class is back in session. Hawthorne Tower was a 40-story monument to ego in the center of the financial district. At 11:12 p.m., the lobby was empty except for a sleepy security guard. When the doors slid open, the guard stood up, ready to stop them. But Sebastian simply held up a platinum card. We are the new owners of the building's debt, Sebastian said calmly. And we are conducting an emergency audit. If you value your pension, you will sit down. The guard sat down. They took the elevator to the penthouse floor. The hallway was silent, lined with expensive modern art that Audrey now knew was purchased with stolen money. They saw light spilling from under the double mahogany doors of the CEO's office. Audrey didn't knock. She kicked the door open. Inside, the office was in chaos. File cabinets were open. Papers were scattered across the floor. And there, behind the massive oak desk, was Liam. He was frantically typing on his laptop, sweat dripping down his forehead. He had a shredder running next to him, feeding it documents with one hand while he typed with the other. He looked up, his eyes wild. When he saw Audrey, he froze. "You!" he breathed. "Get out! You have no right to be here." "I have every right," Audrey said, walking into the room. The heels of her vintage shoes clicked sharply on the hardwood floor. "I own the building, Liam, remember." "Possession is 9/10 of the law," Liam shouted, slamming the laptop shut. "Get out, or I'm calling the police." "Please do," Sebastian said, leaning against the doorframe and crossing his arms. "We'd love for them to see the wire transfer you were just attempting." Liam's face went grey. He grabbed the laptop and hugged it to his chest like a shield. "You can't prove anything," Liam spat. "It's my money. I earned it." Audrey walked around the desk. She moved with a predator's grace. Earned it? By skimming 15% off the vendor contracts? By creating fake consulting firms and billing your own company for services never rendered? I saw the files, Liam. JS Consulting? Jessica Sterling Consulting? You weren't even creative. Liam backed away until he hit the floor-to-ceiling window behind him. The city lights twinkled below, indifferent to his ruin. "It doesn't matter," Liam sneered, trying to regain some bravado. "The money is already in the Caymans. It's untouchable. You can take the company, Audrey. It's worthless anyway. I'm leaving." "You're not going anywhere," Audrey said. "I have a flight in 2 hours," Liam yelled. "And you can't stop me. I'm starting a new life, a better life, with a woman who actually appreciates me." "Does she?" Audrey asked softly. "Does she appreciate you, Liam? Or does she appreciate the account balance?" "She loves me," Liam roared. "We have a family, real children, not like us." The words hung in the air. Not like us. It was a low blow. Audrey and Liam had tried for children for 3 years. The doctors said it was unexplained infertility. Audrey had taken hormones, shots, undergone painful procedures. She had cried herself to sleep for months, and all that time, Liam had already been a father. He hadn't been sterile. He had just been sharing his fertility with someone else. Audrey felt a tear threaten to fall, but she strangled it. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "That account in the Caymans," Audrey said, changing the subject. The one with $9.8 million? Yeah, Liam smirked. Try to touch it. It's encrypted. It was encrypted, Audrey corrected, until about 10 minutes ago. Liam froze. What? You used the company server to manage the transfers, Audrey explained, her voice sounding like a judge reading a sentence. When I bought the company debt, I also acquired the rights to all digital infrastructure. My IT team, Blackwood's IT team, which happens to be the best in the world, remote accessed your laptop the moment you logged on to the Wi-Fi. She took a step closer. We didn't just freeze the transfer, Liam. We reversed it. Liam dropped the laptop. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. No, he whispered. No, no, no. The money is gone, Audrey said ruthlessly. It has been returned to the corporate holding account to pay off the creditors, which, conveniently, is me. Liam fell to his knees. He began to scramble for the laptop, opening it with shaking hands. He stared at the screen. Balance 0.100. You witch! Liam screamed, looking up at her with pure hatred. That was for my kids. That was for the twins. You stole from children. You stole from the employees, Audrey shouted back, her composure finally cracking into righteous anger. You stole from the pension fund, Liam. That money wasn't profit. It was the retirement savings of the 300 people who work for this company. You were going to let them starve so your mistress could live in a villa in Tuscany. She leaned down, her face inches from his. I didn't steal from your children. I saved 300 families from your greed. Liam was hyperventilating. His escape plan was gone. His money was gone. His reputation was gone. I can fix this, Liam stammered, his mind snapping. I can sell the apartment, the jewelry. The apartment is in the company's name, Sebastian noted from the doorway. We're seizing that too, and I believe the police are on their way to collect the jewelry as evidence of money laundering. As if on cue, the sound of sirens wailed from the street below, growing louder. Liam looked at the door, then at the window, then at Audrey. He looked like a trapped rat. Audrey, he pleaded, grabbing the hem of her dress, the same dress he had mocked 3 hours ago. Don't let them take me. Please, I'm your husband. We can work something out. I'll leave Jessica, I swear. I'll never see her again. It was a mistake. I was weak. But I love you. I always loved you. Audrey looked down at him. She saw the man she had wasted 5 years on. She saw the cowardice, the selfishness, the utter lack of spine. She pulled her dress from his grip. You don't love me, Liam, she said quietly. And honestly, I don't think you even love Jessica. You only love yourself. And now, you're the only person you have left. The elevator dinged. Heavy footsteps marched down the hall. One last thing, Audrey said, as the police officers appeared in the doorway behind Sebastian. Liam looked up, tears streaming down his face. What? He sobbed. You said earlier that I should go back to the trailer park, Audrey said. But seeing as you're going to federal prison for embezzlement and fraud, I think you're going to be the one living in a very small box. She turned to the police officers. He's all yours. 2 officers walked in, pulled Liam up from his knees and slapped handcuffs on his wrists. He screamed, he begged, he cursed. He called her every name in the book. Audrey didn't flinch. She watched them drag him out of the office, down the hall, and into the elevator. When the doors closed, the silence returned to the office. Sebastian walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. You okay? Audrey took a deep breath. She looked around the opulent office that had been the command center of her misery. I will be, she said. Suddenly her phone buzzed. It was a text message. She looked at the screen. It was from Patricia Hawthorne. Audrey, darling, I just heard there was a misunderstanding. I'm at the house. I've made tea. Please come over. We need to talk about the future of the company. We're family, after all." Audrey showed the screen to Sebastian. He laughed, a dark, sharp sound. "She thinks she can talk her way out of this," Sebastian said. "She thinks she's still playing the game," Audrey replied, typing a response. "She doesn't realize the game board has been flipped." "What are you going to do about the mother?" Sebastian asked. Audrey hit send on her text. "Liam is in jail," Audrey said, picking up her purse. "But Patricia is the one who taught him how to be a monster. She's the root, and you can't just cut the branches, Sebastian. You have to pull up the root." "So, we're going to the mansion?" "No," Audrey said, walking toward the door. "We're going to the press." The morning sun hit the Hawthorne estate, illuminating the manicured hedges and the marble fountain that had been the pride of Patricia Hawthorne's life. She sat in her solarium, sipping tea from a china cup that was worth more than most people's cars. She was dressed in her finest morning gown, her hair perfectly coiffed. She was waiting for Audrey. Patricia was convinced she could fix this. She had spun lies before. She could spin them again. Audrey is family, she told herself. She's soft. She's desperate for approval. A few compliments, a promise to include her in the social registry, and she'll drop this debt nonsense. At 9:08 a.m. sharp, the iron gates at the bottom of the driveway swung open. But it wasn't Audrey's sensible sedan, and it wasn't Sebastian's limousine. It was a convoy. First came a black SUV, then a police cruiser, and finally, 2 massive moving trucks with asset recovery stenciled on the sides in bold red letters. Patricia dropped her teacup. It shattered on the imported tile, spilling Earl Grey everywhere. She ran to the front door, just as Audrey stepped out of the black SUV. Audrey wasn't wearing vintage today. She was wearing a tailored white power suit that looked like it was cut from pure light. She wore sunglasses, shielding her eyes from the glare, or perhaps shielding her soul from the woman who had tried to break it. "Audrey!" Patricia cried, running down the steps, her heels clicking frantically. "What is this? Why are there trucks? I thought we were going to talk." Audrey lowered her sunglasses. "We are talking, Patricia. This is what eviction sounds like." "Eviction?" Patricia shrieked. "You can't evict me. I'm a Hawthorne." "And I'm the landlord," Audrey said calmly. "You defaulted on the mortgage 3 years ago, Patricia. The bank was too polite to foreclose because of your name. I am not so polite." Audrey signaled to the movers. "Clear it out. Everything not personal to Mrs. Hawthorne is company property. Furniture, art, vehicles. Take it all." "You can't." Patricia lunged at a mover who was picking up a statue. "That's a Rodin." "That's a forgery," Audrey corrected her. "But the frame is gold leaf, so we'll take it." Patricia turned to Audrey, her face twisting into a mask of pure venom. "You ungrateful little brat. After everything I did for you? I let you into my home. I let you marry my son." "You let me be his maid," Audrey said, her voice hard. "You let me be his emotional punching bag, and you encouraged him to cheat on me because you thought Jessica's father had deeper pockets." Audrey took a step closer, towering over the shrinking matriarch. "You knew about the twins, didn't you, Patricia?" Patricia went silent. The color left her face. I... "You knew," Audrey confirmed. "You visited them. I saw the visitor logs at the apartment complex. You played grandma to his secret children while smiling at me over Sunday dinner, asking why I wasn't pregnant yet. That was the deepest cut. The cruelty of it made the police officers nearby look away in discomfort. I did what I had to do for the family legacy," Patricia hissed. "Well, now the legacy is gone," Audrey said. Just then, another car screeched up the driveway. It was a taxi. Jessica Sterling stumbled out, looking disheveled. She was holding 2 toddlers by the hand, the twins. They were crying, confused by the noise and the men moving furniture. Jessica ran toward them, her eyes red from crying. She saw the trucks, the police, and then she saw Audrey. Jessica fell to her knees in the gravel. "Audrey, please," Jessica sobbed. "They froze my accounts. My dad was fired this morning. I have nowhere to go. Liam is in jail. Please, you have to help us. Do it for the children. They're innocent." It was a pathetic sight. The 2 women who had mocked Audrey the night before, one the imperious queen, the other the arrogant mistress, were now begging in the dirt. Patricia looked at Jessica with disgust. "Get those brats out of here. You're making a scene." "They are your grandchildren," Jessica screamed back. Audrey looked at the twins, a boy and a girl. They looked like Liam. They were terrified, clinging to their mother's skirt. Sebastian stepped up beside Audrey. "Say the word, and I'll have security remove them all." Audrey watched the children. She remembered the pain of her own infertility. She remembered the longing. These children were the product of betrayal. Yes. But Jessica was right. They were innocent. They hadn't asked to be born into this mess. Audrey walked over to Jessica. She crouched down, not caring that her white suit touched the dusty ground. She looked the little girl in the eye. "Hi," Audrey said softly. "It's loud here, isn't it?" The little girl nodded, sniffing. Audrey reached into her purse and pulled out a card. She handed it to Jessica. "What is this?" Jessica asked, trembling. "It's the number for a lawyer," Audrey said. "Not my lawyer, a family advocate." Audrey stood up and addressed the group. "I have set up a trust fund for the children," Audrey announced. "It is enough to cover their education, their health care, and their housing until they are 25. Jessica gasped. You're giving us money? After what we did?" "I'm not giving you a dime," Audrey said sharply. "The trust is locked. You cannot access it. Liam cannot access it. It will be managed by a third party to ensure those children have a roof over their heads and a chance at a decent life." She looked at Patricia. "Because I will not let them turn into hawthorns. They won't be raised to value money over people. They will be safe, but they won't be spoiled." Patricia stared at her, unable to comprehend the mercy. "Why?" "Because, unlike you," Audrey said, "I don't punish the weak to feel strong." Audrey turned back to the movers. "Finish loading the truck. Patricia, you have 1 hour to pack your personal belongings. I believe the Greyhound bus to your sister's house in Ohio leaves at noon. I bought you a ticket. One way." "Ohio," Patricia choked. "I can't live in Ohio." "It's a nice state," Audrey said, turning her back. "You'll learn to love the simple life. I did." The Grand Oak Country Club was gone. In its place stood the Blackwood Foundation for the Arts, a community centre offering free classes to underprivileged youth. Audrey sat in her new office, overlooking the city. She wasn't just Sebastian's sister anymore. She was the CEO of her own venture capital firm, specializing in helping women rebuild their lives after financial abuse. Her phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Former socialite Patricia Hawthorne spotted working as greeter at Walmart in Ohio. Audrey didn't click the link. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just swiped the notification away. That life, the drama, the cruelty, the toxicity, was behind her. She looked at the photo on her desk. It wasn't a photo of Liam. It was a photo of herself, laughing with Sebastian and her parents on a boat in Italy. She was free. She was powerful. And most importantly, she was happy. She picked up her pen and signed the final document on her desk. It was the deed to the Hawthorne mansion. She had donated it to the city. It would be an orphanage by Christmas. Audrey Blackwood had taken their hate and turned it into hope. And that was the best revenge of all. And that is the story of how Audrey Blackwood turned her humiliation into a revolution. It's a powerful reminder that you should never judge someone by their car or their clothes, because you never know who is really holding the keys to the castle. The Hawthorns thought they were untouchable, but they learned the hard way that arrogance is the most expensive luxury of all. What do you think? Did Audrey do the right thing by helping the twins, or should she have left them with absolutely nothing? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice and karma, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching.